So if Black Widow, the WandaVision finale, and Loki are going to be an indicator of what Marvel Phase 4 is going to be like, then I don't think I'm going to be really invested in it because I'm not a big fan at the minute. Like, have you guys seen, like, the toy leaks for Spider-Man No Way Home? Like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, this looks ugly? Who thought of this? Like, what happened to the good old red and blue Spider-Man? Like, Marvel, what are you doing? So yes, I watched Black Widow and I didn't really like it that much. Which is a shame considering when the trailers came out, I was like, oh, they're going back to the Winter Soldier gritty spy thriller thing. That's really cool. And I thought that this was going to be a nice little bookend to Natasha Romanoff's character. Like, it would be a good character piece and we would, finally respect an Avenger that we'd known for like 10 years. But the actual film we got itself was really kind of just underwhelming. Like, it's a Black Widow film with a bunch of Black Widows, but our main Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, that we've known for 10 years, feels like a background character. I thought this film was going to be a character piece about Natasha Romanoff, like how she would finally feel like by the end she'd atoned for her sins, but no. Like, the film opens with her on the run from Captain America Civil War, she then runs into Yelena, her sister, and then, like, they fight for a bit, which is weird considering Yelena literally asked Natasha to meet her. Then they get involved in this weightless car chase between them and Taskmaster. Like, it's crazy how weightless the action feels. Like, it seems like Marvel and the people involved in making this film forgot that Natasha Romanoff isn't a super soldier. Like, she falls off a building, smacks a bunch of grates, like, literally looks like she's hurt herself, but then she lands gracefully on the ground. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, in Captain America Civil War, when Captain America gets blasted out the room and he falls down, he, like, smacks a bunch of pipes and he falls down. He doesn't land on his feet. He lands face first into the ground. Like, what the hell happened here? But yes, after that action scene, Yelena and Natasha go free Red Guardian, who's played by David Harbour, from prison. They then go and meet Rachel Weisz's Black Widow, who was technically, like, their mother, but not really. And then there's, like, a big argument with the family, and then after that, they resolve it, and then they all agree to go to Dracov's little sky fortress and take him out. It's a really anticlimactic sequence of where, like, Natasha and Taskmaster are, like, fighting in the sky as the fortress is, like, falling down, and the film just sort of wraps up from there. Like, the overall story for this film could have been so much more, especially when it came to the villains of Dracov and Taskmaster. Like, what they did with Taskmaster was appalling. Like, I don't understand how you could take a character as cool as Taskmaster, a man in the comics who could literally, mimic the fighting style of any person he meets, and make it just feel so boring. It also doesn't help the fact that Taskmaster's costume looks abysmal. Like, what is that? And then for no real reason, they decide to change the identity of who Taskmaster is and they make it Dracov's daughter, and it's like, it's such a weird and pointless change. Like, in context of the film, like, obviously, yes, in terms of an adaptation, it's not a great adaptation of Taskmaster, but even thematically for the film, it just doesn't work. But, like, the story for this film could have just been so much more impactful if everything was much more tightly written and, like, all interwoved and weaved together. This film just feels so disconnected with itself. It's not a character study on Natasha Romanoff. It's not a character piece about Natasha Romanoff. It's just, here's Black Widow and her family, and they fight a Black Widow villain. This could have been a fun, gritty, Jason Bourne-esque film, but it's just not. One of the things I did think we would get in this film is more of the Budapest stuff that they mentioned in Avengers 1 between Black Widow and Hawkeye. And, like, we get one tiny, like, 10-second scene of Natasha sitting in a car watching a building blow up with Dracov's daughter. And it's like, really? That's all you're gonna give me? Like, a story between Black Widow and Hawkeye, showing the events of Budapest, and then having that sort of open the film, and then have that sort of expand into the present day subplot of Taskmaster and Dracov, would have been so much better than the actual story they gave us, because the thing they gave us was just so mediocre. Like, if the film opened in chronological order, showed us the events of Budapest, Natasha blowing on Dracov's daughter, and then they did the big Taskmaster reveal at the end, revealing that Dracov's daughter is Taskmaster, that would have been so much better than what they actually gave us. It would have been actually impactful, and I would have been invested in the story, because as the film is, I just don't care. I'm not in Natasha's head as she feels bad about Draco's daughter. The only thing I know is that she feels bad, but aside from blowing her up, that's sort of it. Like, she doesn't do anything brutal or bloody or violent. If anything, she's really sort of passive in it. She just sits in a car and watches the building blow up. Granted, that is a horrific act in itself, and, like, if we were with Natasha and we saw that sequence play out and we see how bad she feels, that could have been great, but because the way the film presents it as just her sitting in a car watching through the window, it's very passive. You don't feel engaged as it happens. And aside from the weak story, the characters we're given are, like, okay. David Harbour's Red Guardian is fun and entertaining because that's sort of what he's meant to be. He's just meant to be big, strong Russian man. I fought Captain America. He's a fun, entertaining screen presence, but there isn't too much to him. And then you get to Florence Pugh's Yelena, and she's good, but I didn't love her. If anything, all she does is just appear on screen and just makes a bunch of, like, snide remarks. Like, every action scene or every scene would just end with her making a snide remark of, oh, you're slow, or oh, you're such a poser, or oh, you're weird. It honestly felt like to me that her main purpose of the film was just to set up that she's going to be the next Black Widow. Like, other than that, she didn't really do much. I just felt like I didn't know much about her as a character. Like, aside from the scene where her and Red Guardian sort of break down and sort of, like, hash out their family problems, I didn't really feel like she had much of an impact into the story. Like, if anything, for me, the best part of the film was the after credits scene where Yelena meets Madame Hydra, who then tells her that Hawkeye was partly responsible for Natasha's death. Like, that was really cool, and it got me more excited for Hawkeye, but it's kind of like, oh, so the best part of this Black Widow film wasn't even the actual film, it was just this one little teaser scene for a show that's coming out on Disney+. Like, that's not even connected to Black Widow. Like, thanks, Marvel. Thanks for wasting my time. Like, that's probably the best way to describe this film, is that this film is sort of a waste of time. Like, if the story itself was great, I would be like, okay, yeah, that's a fun, solid action film, but the story itself is just really forgettable. Like, I didn't care about it. And it's like, if they wanted to make this Black Widow film set after Captain America Civil War, then they should have just released it after Captain America Civil War, not, you know, post her death in Endgame. Like, the way this film was released is so weird. Like, this should have been a Phase 3 film. I don't know why this film is in Phase 4, and I don't know why it took so long for them to make it, minus the Ike Perlmutter stuff. Because obviously, back when Iron Man 2 came out, they wanted to make a Black Widow film, but Ike Perlmutter, who at the time was running Marvel Studios, was like, no, you can't do that. But then Kevin Feige was able to take control, and now we finally have our Black Widow film, but it's like, too little too late. Like, this movie story is so pointless, and at this point in the MCU, we're supposed to have moved on from Natasha Romanoff because she died in Endgame, so like, what is the purpose of this movie? It's not a tribute, it's not a legacy story, it's literally just, here's a bunch of Black Widows, enjoy. Which is really weird considering the way the trailer marketed this film is like, meet the Avenger that was there from the beginning, see her epic backstory, and it's kind of like, we didn't get any of that. So yeah, Black Widow was a letdown, and as a whole, Marvel Phase 4 doesn't seem to be going in a great direction for me. I didn't love Loki, and I'm just not excited for a lot of the Marvel projects at the minute. Like, Shang-Chi looks fine, Eternals looks interesting, but it also showed us nothing at the same time. I absolutely hate what they're doing with Spider-Man. It's like, Marvel, you're so much better than this. Why are you lacking right now? But yeah, that's what I thought about Black Widow. I didn't really like it that much. But what did you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Hit the notification bell down there. My social media links are also down in the description, so if you give those a look and a follow, that'd be very much appreciated. And until we meet again, see you guys next time.